The Predator should have torn the child apart. From the command spire of the Threx Dominion's orbital flagship, Overseer Cathor leaned closer to projection screen. The image was grainy from atmospheric interference, but the shapes were unmistakable. A human settlement dome, its crude metal panels patched with scavenged alloy, and a great beast. 3 meters long, bone-plated shoulders, jaws lined with side teeth, lie in the dirt beside a sleeping child. The creature's back was turned to the open door. No guards, no walls, no alarms. The Predator lay as if it had chosen to trust the small figure snoring quietly in the dust. Cathor's mandibles clicked in disbelief. Played again. The drone technician obeyed. The scene rewound, flickering through hours of motionless calm until a moment of approach. The child emerged first, perhaps 7 human years old, dragging a cracked food tray. The Predator patted from the tree lean, low and silent, hunger glowing in its amber eyes. Cathor expected screams. Instead, the child pushed scraps across the ground and retreated only a step. The beast lowered its head, ate, then, astonishingly, remained. Minutes stretched into hours, until night fell and the child curled beside it, unafraid. The playback froze. "This is error," one officer rasped. His crest ridges pulsed blue with unease. Predators do not lower their guard before prey. They do not, Cathor agreed, though his tone held no certainty. The observation chamber hummed with restrained tension. The walls were lined with half 100 screens, each displaying a different human settlement scattered across Vera 9. Crops tended by hand. Makeshift water collectors. Children laughing during storms fierce enough to strip metal from a dome. Every recording unsettled his officers, yet none compared to this one. The Predator asleep with its back turned to a human child. Cathor straightened, folding his arms behind his carapace. He had commanded Dominion fleets for 60 cycles, seen empires bend under orbital fire, watched species flee into caverns at the mere sight of Threx patrol craft. He had never witnessed prey species invite danger into their homes. "Perhaps," said Subcommander Thelene cautiously, "this is staged. A trick of their kind to project strength." Cathor's gaze hardened. "You believe a frontier child would risk death to deceive us?" Silence. None dared answer. He shifted focus to another feed, different colony, different absurdity. A group of humans repairing a broken perimeter fence. One slipped, nearly impaled on jagged alloy, yet laughter erupted as comrades hauled him up, clapping his shoulders. Injuries dismissed with humor, fear replaced by jokes. Reckless, hissed Thelene. They do not value survival. Cathor's mandibles flexed. Not reckless. Something else. Their kind persists where others perish. They treat fear as if it were beneath them. The idea disturbed him more than he cared to admit. The Threx had studied 100 rising species. Fear was universal. Fear enforced obedience. Structured societies preserved the weak. Yet these humans, thin-skinned, fragile-boned, behaved as if fear were optional. They mocked storms. They stared down predators. They laughed when pain should have broken them. Cathor gestured toward the suspended image of the Predator beside the child. This is not dominance. This is not training. It is trust. He tasted the word with disgust. Trust between prey and predator is not natural. It violates every principle of order. The chamber filled with restless clicks and low growls. Officers exchanged glances, some with awe, others with unease edging toward panic. One braver than the rest asked, "Overseer, what shall we record in the archives? That humanity is illogical? That they confuse alliance and madness?" Cathor allowed silence to stretch before replying. He understood the weight of archives, what was written to determine whether a species was tolerated, studied, or erased. "Write this," he said at last. His voice carried the iron of command. Humanity rejects fear. They do not hide from predators. They welcome them. They do not tremble before storms. They laugh. Their settlements are not bastions of survival. They are declarations of defiance. His mandibles tightened. And such defiance must not be permitted to spread unchecked. The officers bowed their crests, though unease lingered in their movements. Cathor dismissed the gathering but remained before the screen, studying the frozen image of the sleeping child. What unsettled him most was not the predator's presence, but the child's expression, peaceful, as if safety was not earned by walls or weapons, but by something deeper, something the Threx could neither categorize nor control. He turned away only when the projection dimmed. For now, he would watch and wait, but deep in his core, a thought gnawed at him. If humanity can inspire trust in predators, what might they one day inspire in empires? The morning began with the sharp crack of metal against metal. Sparks rained as Captain Alara Voss welded a patch over a tear in the settlement's southern dome. The alloy plate was scavenged from an old cargo lander, its edges uneven, but it would hold. She lifted her helmet, squinting through the dust haze rising from the forest beyond the ridge. The haze always carried the smell of iron and damp leaves, warning of creatures large enough to crush bone without noticing. "Another hole sealed," she muttered, wiping sweat from her brow, "which means the dome only has 40 more waiting." A chuckle answered her. Garen, the colony's mechanic, climbed the ladder with a crate of fasteners balanced on his shoulder. "Better than last week. Progress, Captain." "Progress is not dying," Alara said dryly, but the corner of her mouth tugged upward. Below them, life unfolded in the settlement square. Children carried buckets from the water collectors, sloshing half the load onto their boots. A group of farmers crouched in the soil plots, adjusting the growth lamps to coax vegetables from alien dirt. Someone tuned a guitar built from scrap tubing, strumming a broken but cheerful rhythm. The colony was fragile, pieced together from wreckage and willpower, yet it breathed with stubborn life. Illyra felt the weight of it every time she looked at their faces. They trusted her to keep them alive, and she refused to betray that trust. A warning horn echoed from the northern watchpost. Illyra's smile vanished. She dropped her tools and climbed down, boots thudding against the ladder rungs. At the perimeter fence, a young scout waved frantically. Captain, movement in the tree lean. Illyra jogged over, rifle slung across her shoulder. She peered through the scope toward the forest. Shadows shifted between the trees. Then it stepped out, a predator easily 4 meters long, its back ridged with bone plates, eyes burning like molten glass. The settlers froze. Even the children fell silent, buckets dangling in their hands. The beast prowled closer, paws sinking into the dust, muscles rippling under thick hide. The fence buzzed weakly where power still held, but everyone knew it wouldn't stop a determined charge. Illyra walked past the scout and planted herself at the boundary line. She raised no weapon, gave no order to fire. Instead, she stood with her arms loose at her sides, gaze steady. The predator halted, nostrils flaring. Its jaws parted, releasing a low growl that vibrated through the ground. Dust swirled between them. Behind her, someone whispered, "Captain, shoot it!" Illyra ignored the plea. She met the beast's eyes and refused to flinch. For long seconds, nothing moved but the wind. Then, with a final snort, the predator turned and padded back into the forest. Branches closed behind it, and silence fell heavier than before. A wave of breath escaped the settlers as if they had all been holding it. One of the farmers muttered, "You didn't even blink." "Didn't need to," Illyra replied. She slung her rifle back over her shoulder. Sometimes fear feeds on more than flesh. Garen let out a low whistle. "Remind me never to play cards against you." Laughter rippled, shaky but real. Relief bled into humor, as it always did with her people. The children carried their buckets again, water splashing onto the ground. The guitar resumed its broken tune. The colony's pulse returned to normal. That night, in the mess hall, they ate stew thin with more water than meat. Conversation hummed around the tables. Illyra sat with her officers at the head, watching faces lit by recycled lanterns. She noticed something in their eyes. Exhaustion, yes, but also a kind of stubborn fire. "You think they're scared?" Garen asked quietly. "They're human," Illyra said. "Fear doesn't stop us. It just reminds us we're alive." Across the table, Dr. Anika leaned forward. Still, letting that thing walk away, was that wisdom or chance? "Both," Illyra admitted. "We don't win by showing teeth every time. We win by showing we're not prey." The mess hall quieted as her words carried beyond the officers' table. People had been listening. They always did. Later, after most had gone to their quarters, Illyra stood alone outside the dome, watching the stars through the faint shimmer of the shield grid. The constellation shifted slowly, unfamiliar yet steady. She folded her arms, jaw tight. She knew eyes were on them, not just predators in the forest, but something higher. Her military years had taught her the signs. Faint static in calm bands, glimpses of movement in the night sky, the feeling of being measured. She glanced at the ridge line, where the predator had vanished. A thought whispered, unbidden. Who is really watching whom? The question lingered as the night deepened, heavy with the sounds of the forest. The night fell heavy over the colony, a thick veil of darkness broken only by lanterns burning in the square. The air carried the familiar mix of damp soil and smoldering wood. Illyra walked the perimeter with 2 scouts, checking the fence relays. Most held a weak charge. Some sagged lifeless, waiting for parts they did not have. She paused near the northern dome. Children's laughter drifted from inside, soft, muffled, safe. For a moment, she allowed herself to breathe. Then the horn sounded. One long blast, low and urgent. Trilene, a scout hissed, pointing. Illyra turned. From the forest edge, a shadow emerged, moving with deliberate slowness. Not the quick scuttling of smaller predators. This was something far larger. The glow from the lanterns revealed the ridged shoulders, plated hide, and amber eyes of the beast she had faced that morning. The settlers gathered near their doors, weapons raised, fear playing on their faces. "Hold," Illyra ordered. Her voice cut across the square. No one fired. The creature padded closer, claws scraping stone. Its head swayed as it sniffed the air. Then, to Illyra's astonishment, it did not charge. It moved toward the smaller dome, where the children slept. "Captain," one of the farmers whispered. "Stay back," Illyra said sharply. She stepped forward alone. Her rifle hung ready, though she prayed she would not need it. The beast reached the dome and stopped before the entrance. The door had been left ajar for the evening breeze. Inside, a child stirred. Little Ren, barely 7 years old, shuffled out clutching a crack bowl. His hair was tousled from sleep, his steps unsteady. He did not scream when he saw the predator towering above him. Instead, he set the bowl on the ground, scraps of stew sliding onto the dirt. "Here," he mumbled, rubbing his eyes. "You looked hungry." Illyra's heart clenched. She wanted to rush forward, to drag him away, but instinct told her to wait. The predator lowered its massive head. Its jaws opened, and the settlers braced for a scream that never came. The beast sniffed, then licked the scraps with a rasping tongue. Rin giggled, unafraid. The settlers murmured in disbelief. The predator ate slowly, careful not to spill. When finished, it folded its legs and sank onto the dirt, its head lowered beside the child. Rin yawned, crawled closer, and curled against the beast's plated shoulder. Within minutes, he was asleep again. The colony stood frozen. No one dare move. From orbit, the moment was captured in crystal clarity by Dominion drones. Overseer Cathor replayed the footage 3 times before speaking. "This cannot be misinterpreted," he said coldly. "A predator has chosen to sleep beside prey, turning its back to danger. Such inversion of nature is unacceptable." On the bridge, his officers whispered in agitation. One finally asked, "Is it control, Overseer? Do humans command them?" Cathor's mandibles clicked with irritation. "No, what I see is worse. The predator trusts. That is more dangerous than dominance. A species that inspires loyalty from beasts cannot be measured by ordinary scales." He dismissed the officers, though the unease lingered in their eyes. Alone, Cathor stared at the feed once more, unsettled by the child's peace. Back on the ground, Alara crouched near the dome, hand tight on her rifle. She watched Rin breathe softly against the creature's flank. Anika, the doctor, whispered beside her, "Do we pull him away?" Alara shook her head. "Wake him, and the beast may react." "Let it be." Garen muttered, "This is madness. We're letting a monster sleep inside our walls." Alara's gaze never wavered. Maybe it's not madness. Maybe it's survival of another kind. The settlers dispersed slowly, returning to their homes with nervous glances. Lanterns dimmed, leaving only the quiet glow of the predator's amber eyes watching the square. Hours passed. Alara stayed, rifle across her knees, unwilling to leave the child unguarded. Yet the beast never moved against him. It simply breathed, steady and calm, as if it too had chosen to rest under her watch. At dawn, the first light spilled across the settlement. Rin woke, stretching against the creature's hide. He patted its shoulder as if it were a docile work animal, then toddled back inside. The predator rose, shook dust from its plated back, and padded away into the forest without a glance behind. Alara exhaled the breath she'd been holding all night. Anika joined her, eyes wide. "What do we even call that?" "Proof," Alara said quietly, "that this world doesn't play by the rules we expect." She looked to the forest, where branches swayed in the beast's wake. A part of her whispered fear. Another part whispered something stranger. Possibility. The council dome smelled of ash and metal. A brazier burned at the center, pushing heat into the chill morning air. Alara stood before the semicircle of elders, shoulders square though exhaustion pulled at her frame. She had not slept since the predator's vigil beside Rin. Garen spoke first, his voice rough. "You saw it. We all did. That thing walked past our weapons and lay down with a child. What if the next time it doesn't stop at scraps? What if the next child isn't so lucky?" Murmurs rippled across the benches. Fear clung to them heavier than smoke. Anika stepped forward. "But it did stop. That has to mean something. A predator doesn't ignore easy prey unless it feels safe." "Safe?" Garen snapped. "That's the opposite of what I wanted to feel. I wanted afraid of us." Alara raised a hand, silencing them. "Argue later. For now, hear me. We face more than the beasts of this world. Something else watches us. I felt it the moment I set foot here, and last night confirmed it. The rules are being tested. Not by us, by whoever's out there." The council fell quiet. None doubted her instincts. She had earned their faith with blood and patience. From orbit, Overseer Cathor had already reached his conclusion. The child's laughter echoed still in his memory, a sound he had never expected from prey. It gnawed at his judgment. The Dominion thrived on order. Predators ruled, prey fled. The human inversion threatened that balance. Cathor summoned his advisors. Hollow screens flickered, replaying the image of the beast curled beside the boy. "This is not anomaly," Cathor said, mandibles clicking sharp. "It is contagion. If beasts can be turned by humans, then no predator can be trusted. We cannot allow such a species to spread." One officer asked, "Shall we erase them, Overseer?" Cathor's eyes narrowed. "Not yet. We test them first. If they pass, we report containment. If they resist, extermination will be swift." He issued the order. "Unleash control waves of predators at the human colony. Watch how they react. Measure not strength alone, but unity, cunning, resilience." On the ground, the test began before dawn. The first sign was silence in the forest. Birds ceased their calls. Even the insects hushed. Alara caught it at once and armed the watch posts. The attack struck with terrifying coordination. 3 smaller predators burst through the fence on the eastern side, claws sparking against weakened relays. Farmers scrambled, firing scattershot into the dark. One beast fell. 2 lunged deeper into the square. "Hold the line," Alara shouted, cutting one down with a clean shot through the throat. The third charged toward the granary. Garen met it head-on, axe in hand. The clash rang across the colony as steel bit hide. He staggered but did not fall. Others joined, spears driving the creature back until it collapsed. Then came the second wave. Larger shapes moved through the tree line. 6 this time, circling, testing. Their eyes gleamed like embers. Anika pulled children into the dome. Her voice steady though her hands shook. Rin clutched her sleeve, whispering, "Where's the big one? The one who slept with me?" "Gone," Anika said, though she prayed it wasn't true. The settlers fought with desperate coordination. Traps were sprung. Pits lined with sharpened stakes. Nets weighted with stones. For every predator that fell, another pressed forward. The square became a chaos of snarling jaws and flashing blades. Ilera moved through it all like iron in motion. She fired until her rifle overheated, then drew steel. Each order she gave carried weight, pulling frightened farmers into soldiers by sheer will. Overhead, Dominion drones captured every moment. Kothor leaned forward, fascinated. The humans did not scatter. They tightened formation, covering each other, dragging the wounded to safety. Prey should flee. These did not. When the final beast collapsed, pierced by a dozen wounds, silence fell again. The settlers stood gasping, soaked in sweat and blood, but alive. Only 2 had fallen. Their loss was felt, yet the colony still stood. Ilera wiped her blade clean, her breath ragged. "Count survivors. Check the walls. We hold this place, or we die trying." The people nodded. Strength reforged in the crucible of the night. From orbit, Kothor made his report. The humans endured. They protected their young, their weak, with ferocity that defies classification. They do not break. And Aid asked, "Then we end them?" Kothor hesitated. For the first time in his long command, doubt gnawed at certainty. He had seen beasts kneel before prey. He had seen prey fight like predators. To erase them felt premature. "Not yet," he said at last. "They have earned one more test." In the colony below, dawn painted the sky with pale gold. Ilera stood at the battered fence, staring into the forest that still hid countless threats. Behind her, Rin tugged her sleeve. "Captain?" "Yes, little one." "Why do they all come at once?" "Animals don't do that." Ilera crouched, looking into his wide eyes. "Because someone wanted to see if we'd fall." Rin frowned. "Did we?" She smiled faintly. "Not today." Yet in her chest, unease coiled like a shadow. Whoever watched from the dark was not finished. The real trial had only begun. The forest lay broken from a night's assault. Blood stained the soil, fences sagged in ruin, and smoke curled from hastily patched fires. Yet the colony still breathed. Ilera walked the perimeter at dawn, her boots crunching over scorched earth. Survivors nodded to her, exhaustion in their eyes, but something harder beneath it, resolve. Above, a star burned too bright against the morning sky. She paused, frowning. That was no star. Anika joined her, shielding her eyes. "It's moving." Ilera's stomach tightened. The Watchers were done hiding. High in orbit, Overseer Kothor studied his prey through the viewsphere. The humans had passed the second test. They fought with tenacity and order no prey should possess. They held ground where most predators would retreat. But it was not enough. The Dominion demanded certainty. If these beings could bend predators to lie at their children's feet, then they posed a threat greater than their weapons. Kothor's decision cut through him like a blade. Deploy cleansing fire. The experiment ends now. His officers obeyed in silence. Drones descended, their undercarriages glowing with lethal charge. The alarm rang in the colony. Farmers dropped tools and children clung to parents. Fear rippled faster than speech. "They're not animals," Garen said, pointing skyward. "This is no beast. It's them, whoever's been testing us." Ilera gathered her people in the square. "Listen to me. We have minutes, maybe less. Whatever those lights are, they're coming for us. We can't outgun them, but we can outthink them." "Captain," Anika said, voice tight, "we don't even know what they want." Ilera looked toward the forest where the predator had vanished. "They want to know if we break." Rin tugged at her sleeve. "The big one will help." Ilera almost dismissed it, but the memory of that night, beast and child breathing side by side, rooted in her mind. Perhaps Rin was not wrong. The drones descended in formation, precision incarnate. Sparks of plasma glowed in their cores. The settlers raised rifles, bows, even sharpened sticks, though each knew it was useless. Then the forest stirred. A guttural roar split the air. Branches snapped, trees bent, and the great predator emerged. Not alone. Dozens of smaller beasts padded at its side, eyes burning, hides scarred from old battles. The settlers froze. The predators formed a line between colony and drones, heads raised to the sky. Kothor's mandibles clicked in disbelief. They defend them? The great predator bellowed again, and the drones hesitated. Dominion programming faltered against behavior unrecorded. The predators leapt, tearing through metal husks with claws and fury, pulling them from the sky before their payloads could release. Explosions rocked the tree line. Fire lit the dawn, and ash rained on the settlement. Ilera and her people fought beside them. Spears thrust where beast pin machines. Rifles cracked at exposed cores. The colony became a storm of defiance. One drone slipped through. It rose above the square, plasma ready to fall. Ilara sprinted across the dirt, lungs burning. She leapt onto a broken cart, raised her overheated rifle, and fired. The shot pierced its core. The explosion hurled her backward, heat searing her skin. When the dust cleared, silence stretched long and terrible. One by one, the settlers rose. The predators, too, stood breathing hard, eyes glinting in the smoke. The great beast approached Ilara. She gripped her rifle, though weak, prepared for the end. Instead, it lowered its head to her, a gesture of recognition. Then it turned and melted back into the forest with its kin. The people stared, awed. Anika whispered, "They fought for us." Ilara forced herself upright. "No, they fought with us. There's a difference." In orbit, Cathor could not speak. Every principle he believed in, the natural order, predator and prey, dominance without trust, lay shattered. He had seen a child feed a beast, a colony hold against impossible odds. Predators rallied to defend humans as kin. His aide asked, trembling, "Overseer, what do we report?" Cathor's mandibles twitched, torn between duty and truth. Finally, he rasped, "We report nothing. Burn the records. If the Dominion learns of this, they will descend in force. Humanity is not prey, but they are not ready for the storm my kind would bring." He ended the feed. Alone in the command chamber, Cathor whispered the words he never thought he would say. "Let them rise." The colony buried their dead that evening. Fires burned low, casting long shadows. Children pressed close to parents, but their fear had shifted into something new, pride. Ilara stood at the edge of the square, watching the stars return to the sky. Somewhere above, she knew, eyes still lingered, perhaps merciful, perhaps fearful, but watching nonetheless. Garen approached, his voice rough but softer than before. "You were right. We weren't prey." "No," Ilara said, her gaze steady on the heavens. "We never were, and now they know it." Rin darted past them, laughing, chasing fireflies across the dirt. For the first time in weeks, Ilara let herself smile. The night air was heavy with smoke and grief, but also something stronger. Humanity had been measured, tested by claws and fire, and found unbroken. And far beyond the sky, the Dominion would whisper them in fear.